The WordPress block editor brings a powerful page building experience to your content creation process. Learn how blocks can be used to create complex design as Daisy and Niharika work together to tap into the power of the block editor to create a landing page in WordPress. Niharika started her career as a graphic designer with a leading digital marketing agency in India. She has worked with clients from varied niches for their social media graphics and website design needs. Currently, she is working in the graphic design niche as a freelancer while establishing her own brand, popxdaisy.com, which is an online store with imitation jewelry and home decor. Daisy has worked in and around the WordPress community since 2007. She has spoken at WordCamps in New York, Boston, and Chicago. She also helped to organize the first WordCamp Boston in 2010. Daisy works for Automatic as a developer relation contributor on WordPress open source project. In her spare time, you'll often find Daisy listening to audiobooks while knitting. Niharika and Daisy, let's build that landing page.
Hello, welcome to the presentation of From Design to Blocks with the WordPress Block Editor. I'm Daisy Olsen. I'm a developer relations wrangler with Automatic, and the designer for today's presentation is Niharika, and she has put together a design that I'm going to build out with a blocks using WordPress, and the goal is to inspire you all to go and do some really great things with your own work using WordPress blocks. All right, so here we are. We're going to go ahead and get started on our quick page build. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have the image that is our mock-up that we're going to attempt to approximate using the block editor. And on the right-hand side is a new page screen on the site that I've already started to configure. There are a few things that I would have assumed would have been part of um, the existing theme, like the header and the footer and some things along those lines. So it won't be everything that you would do when you were setting up a new site, but let's see how efficiently we can work through this design. So we're going to start by adding a title to the page. We're going to call it New Home. This is not going to display on the page itself because we're going to use the Astra settings here that are based on the theme that's active on the site. And we're going to disable the title. We're also going to set the transparent header to enabled. So I've set this up so that most pages would have a black header with the white text and white logo over it. But for the home page, we're looking for this transparent um, overlay. And in order to accomplish that, we're going to add what's called a cover block. So there are a number of ways to add blocks to a page. There are a couple of different inserters. The primary inserter stays up at the top of the screen, and that's going to always insert the block, at least in the current version of WordPress, will insert the block into the bottom of the page. There's also an inline add block button that will kind of move around based on where you are on your page, and you'll see this pop up a few times as we work here. And then if you click right into the content area and just start typing, you can start with a slash, and it will bring up a search that will bring up the various blocks that are available. So in this case, we're going to use a covered block. So I can start typing cover, and I can hit enter, and it will add the cover block. And the next thing to do will be to configure this cover block. So you have a menu up here above the block, and what we'll do is uh, we'll set the alignment. So you can have different alignment options here, and different blocks will have different options for this setting. In this case, we want to use a full width setting. We want this cover to go across the entire width of the page. And then we want to use an image behind it. So we're going to click on Media Library since I've already uploaded our images for this demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and select the image that is displayed in the mockup. And I'll hit select, and you can see here that it's added the image, but you'll also see that it's quite dark. So I'm going to go ahead and select the entire cover block again. Once you've inserted it, it will bring you right into start adding blocks to the cover. So I've selected the entire cover block, and now what I'm going to do is change the opacity starts at 50%, and I'm going to change that down to 0 just by sliding that across. And now you can see that the color has lightened up. Since this image already had an opacity over it when it was created, we don't want to add an additional opacity. All right, so now we have this 10 must have this winter heading. So I'm gonna since the insertion point is already here, I don't want this to be a paragraph, which is what automatically showed up. So I'm going to use the slash command, which will open up the quick inserter, and I am going to search for heading, and I'm just going to use the heading block. There are some of these that will have purple icons, and these are all added by a plugin, which we will only be using for one block on this page. So we're going to, as much as possible, stick with the blocks that come with WordPress by default. So now I'm going to go ahead and start typing 10 must have this winter. I'm going to stick to the text that was in the mockup as much as possible. All right, and then I'm going to use the alignment here to change the text alignment so that it's aligned in the center. So now we have this nice, already stylized header. All right, and now if I hit enter, it'll bring me down to a new paragraph block, and I can go ahead and start typing. I love winter, and so winter accessories. Okay, and again, we want to have this be centered. So I'm going to, when I hover over this text, this menu pops up and I can change the text alignment to align to the text center. Okay, and then the last thing is we're going to add a button. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter at the end of that line. And then it brings me back over to the left side of the cover block, and I can search for button. I'm going to choose button. Okay. The button text is going to be read more with a little arrow. And then if I click out of the actual button itself to the button container, which is because this button block can contain multiple buttons, I can change this alignment and align it in the center, similar to the way that it is over here. And then if I select the button itself again, I can change the colors. Now, we have a few custom colors added to the bottom of the palette. In this case, I would like my text color to be black and the background color to be this coral color. And there we have our first section of the page. So let's go ahead and preview this. Preview it in a new tab. And here you can have what we have to start with. Okay, so now we're looking at this edit screen again. And what we're going to want to do now that we have our first section of blocks completed is to add our next one. So you can click down in this area here and start typing the type of block you want to use. In this case, we're going to do another cover block. And then this time, instead of an image background, we're going to give it a color background. So we can just select from the available colors, and the ones at the end of the list are the custom colors that were added for this design. So this time we're going to choose this light pink color, and it adds the block in for us. Okay, so now in this case, what we have is we have columns. So we have on the left side is some text, and on the right side is an image. So there are a couple of ways we can go about doing this. Um, we can add an inner block of columns, which is what I think I will try that first and see how it works out. So I'm going to select the columns block, and then it asks me how many columns or what variation I'd like to use, and what we'll do is at 50/50. So now you'll see that we have the placeholders for these blocks with the columns. So let's start with the one on the right. We're going to add an image block, and I'm going to choose the image that's in the mockup here and select this. And so now we can see that image. And then we'll come back to the styling piece in just a moment. And now what we want over here is a heading, and we're going to say neat, and then NIH, oh, sorry, NIK, lowercase, OLIFE. And I think that actually is an uppercase N in the mockup. All right, so now we've got our header, but it doesn't quite look the way that it does over here. So let's see what we can do about that. So we'll start by changing the text alignment. And now when you have a header block, you can't change the font easily without editing the HTML. So that's what we're actually going to do. So I'm going to go into edit as HTML. You can see now here you can see the H2, and you can see Meet, Nico Life, and I see that I'm missing a letter here. What I'll do is I'll add a span around the word Meet. And then inside that span, I can add a quick style. And I'll just add the font family of Lato. All right. And assuming I didn't have any typos, when I switch this back to edit visually, you can see now that I have Meet and Nico Life here. And now to get the text up a little bit higher, what I can do is use the more rich text tools. So I selected the text that I want to change, and then I can change this to a superscript. So now we have the Meet up higher and then Nico Life a little bit lower. Now we could add some more styling in there, inline styling to adjust the text a little bit, but for this, I think we're going to leave it the way that it is. All right, so the next thing will be to get the paragraph text. So I am just going to grab that from another document that I have off to the side. And because these are just going to be plain paragraphs, I can just hit the plus here. And as soon as I see the cursor flashing, then I can just go ahead and paste that in. So here we have the text that was already in place. So that looks great. Now, what I've done already is, because I knew I was going to have this background effects that I wanted to add to the image here. What I've done is I have created a custom class in the customizer CSS, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. We'll go through all of the little bits of CSS that I've added for this design. And in this case, it is, I believe I called it drop shadow, but let me just verify that. It's called frame. So what I've done here is I've added a custom class. So if I added additional class to this image block, a frame, it won't show anything on the edit screen, but when we save the draft and reload the page, then you can see that we have this drop shadow that is actually like a border that goes behind it, that looks quite similar to what was provided in the mockup. So now we can see that we have a little bit of formatting we need to do because the color of the text ended up being white. So what we'll do is we'll go back into the edit screen and we'll select that text and we'll go to color settings and then change that to be black instead of white. We'll save that draft again and reload it. And now we've got our block. But see, I have not set the width of the cover block, so you can see the white on the edges. So we can go back again, select the cover block, make sure you have the whole cover block selected, change the alignment to full width. Okay, so the next section we have is going to be this categories area that has the header and 3 columns. So what we can do is, because it's got the white background, what we'll do now is add a group block. And I like to use group blocks because they mean that I can easily move sections around on the page. Because within this group block, we're going to add additional blocks. So inside the group block, first thing is going to be the heading. And we're going to call that browse the categories. Okay. And we're going to center that text. And so that's that. And that the next thing within the same group is we're going to add a column block. And so you can see it's recently used, so it'll show up in the quick select. And we want 3 equal columns. So now you can see 1, 2, 3 columns. And in each column, we're going to add an image. And we're going to select from the media library. And all 3 of these images should already be available to us. Now, once we have the 3 images added, we can add a little text, say travel. We can say beauty. And we can say lifestyle. So we're pretty close here. We will have a drop shadow that needs to be applied to these images, which I've already configured in the custom CSS. And so what we're going to do is to each of these images, we will add a class under advanced of shadow, but lowercase. All right, and we do that for each of them. Okay, So now we have the three columns with the three images, but over in the mockup, we see that the middle one is offset slightly. So what we're going to do is the easiest place to add is going to be by going into the paragraph block underneath the image and hitting enter. And then we can add a spacer. And then we can move that spacer up twice so that it's at the top. And I think 100 is probably 100 pixels is probably going to be too much. So let's try to reduce that down to 50. So let's go ahead and save this and switch over to our preview. And let's see how it looks. All right, there we have it. So we have three images. We have a nice drop shadow effect on each of them. And we have the text underneath. All right, let's continue on to the next section. All right, so the next section we have here is this pink background with some images and a title and a button. So it's very similar to the first one that we did, except that we'll have a pink background instead of an image background. So down below the work that we've already done, we're going to use the inserter and we can choose cover. And we're going to make that cover pink. And we will set it to be full width. All right, so the first thing is going to be title. So we're going to enter into this title area. We're going to use the slash command just by typing the /, and then we'll search for heading, or you can use the arrow keys to move up and down the list that shows up to start with, and hit enter. And then it's a little hard to see with the white on the pink, but we can start by typing. That's my favorite. I'm going to go ahead and center this, text align center. And then I want to change this color to black. Okay. And now we will go ahead and add a gallery block. So what we have over here are these 5 images. So by using a gallery block, we can get all 5 of them at once. So I'm going to search gallery. I am going to use the media library, and we will select this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And as you select them, you get these check boxes that show. And now I can create new gallery and insert the gallery. All right, so we've got, what we want is for them to be small and all in a line. So I'm going to say 5 columns in the block settings, and that should do that. Now in this case, instead of giving it a full width, what we're going to do is change it to a wide width, and that will limit the width of the space that that block takes. And then the last thing in this section is a button. So I can use this inserter that shows up at the bottom of the cover block and type in button. And let's go ahead and select that. And it says click here to see more. All right. So we're going to want to select the whole button block, and we're going to change the alignment to center. And then we're going to select the button, and we'll change the color so that we have black text and a coral button. All right, let's see what this looks like now. We'll go ahead and save it and refresh our page. Scroll down a little bit, and now we have the 5 buttons, the 5 images lined up. We could certainly work on the spacing here so that they take less space and be more similar to the mock-up, but I think this is good for demonstration purposes. All right, so we just have a little bit more left to go here. We're going to work on the bottom couple of sections here. Now, this is tricky, a little tricky, because what we have is this background that has a shape behind it. So there is not a block currently in core in WordPress core that will manage this for us without using an image. But there is the ultimate Gutenberg plugin from Brainstorm Force that will allow us to do this pretty easily. It won't exactly match this line, but it'll give us something pretty similar. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add a columns block, but we're going to choose advanced columns. All right. And what we want is just a single column. And then we can start adding blocks to it. So we can add a heading block, top like the blog. We can set this to be centered. Now, if we go back out to the column block now, what we will see are a lot of different options. But what we're going to do is add a shape divider. We're going to add it to the bottom. The type we will use is called waves. And then we want to set it to a color of this light pink color. So now you can see we have our first title. And then at the bottom of this block is this pink wave. And there are things that you can do, like you can change the height of it. So we could say we want it to be, I don't know, 400 and make it really tall. But we're just going to keep the wave that it has at the beginning by default. All right, so with that in place, what we can do now is go ahead and add the rest of our blocks that will go down to this section here with the image and the post. So for this, we're going to search for post, and we're going to use the latest post, sorry, block for this. So it will bring in a post, just the title of the post. So we'll be using the list view, and we will do a few things. One is we will set a post content. We're going to say we just want an excerpt. We can change it so that it has the amounts of text that we want to display. We can have it display a featured image, which is what we are going to want here. I'm going to say I want a large featured image, and I want the image to be aligned to the left. All right, and now it looks pretty big, but we'll see how close it comes to what we have in the mockup once we preview it. And then what I want to do is only show a single post. Okay, so now we can see just that one post. We have our image, and we'll see how close we get with this. So let's go ahead and save the draft and see what we have so far. Okay, and so here we have the image is pretty large, and then we have the content to the right. And I did do a little bit of work to display some of the text in a somewhat similar manner. It will not be exactly the same. So I can go ahead and add the post date in, and maybe reduce down the text a little bit. And then maybe instead of having a large image, we could try having a medium sized image and see how that looks. Okay, so it could be a little bit bigger. One of the things that we can do is instead of using just an image size, we can actually set a specific size. So if we said we wanted to try a 750, we can save this and try that. Probably still a little too big. So let's try 500. And that looks pretty good. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go down, we're going to call this pretty close to complete. One thing I do need to do is to select this advanced columns uh, block and make sure that it's set to be full width so that the shape goes out the whole way across. Now that is it for this section that has the shape at the bottom. So the next thing we're going to do is add a block here underneath it. We're going to make this be a cover block. We're going to give it a background color of pink. We're going to select that block and we're going to make it full width. And then we're going to start with an image because this Think Happy Be Happy is actually an image. So we're going to go into a media library. We'll select the image that we want and insert it. And we're going to make sure that that image gets aligned center. And I don't want it to be quite so large. So what we'll do is select the medium size. And maybe that's a little too small. So maybe what we'll do is make it about 75%, or maybe 50% looks about right. Okay. And now at the bottom below here is just two more images that are in a column. So we're going to select this block. We're going to add a simple column, 50-50, and we're just going to add a couple of images here. We'll go to the media library. We'll select this, and we can do that same thing for here. And as I mentioned in the introduction of the design, these might normally be more dynamic in nature, being a YouTube video and an Instagram feed. But for the purposes of this, we'll just go ahead and leave them like this. All right, so what we have here is Instagram. And over here we have a paragraph block. And we'll call that YouTube. And then we'll get this text aligned. And let's save our draft again. And let's see how close we got it this time. All right, that's looking pretty good. So there you have our completed page. I see we need to change the text color of these in this text here. So what we'll do is go into color settings and change that to be black. Sometimes the theme settings will not quite work on the back end, so you have to keep on going back and forth to get it to where it needs to be. So we could work a little bit more with the spacing to get everything to line up a little bit nicer. And to do that, you would just continue to add spacer blocks into the places that need a little extra room. One thing that I noticed when I was testing this was that if I collapse this down to a mobile size, I'll just go this really skinny here, then you end up with this extra space in here. So I can go ahead and get that back to where it was. We can go back in here, and I installed a plugin that would let me add conditions to blocks. So I can, for this one spacer block, I can say hide on mobile. And then when the page is loaded into a mobile view, then that particular block will not display. That's pretty handy. The other thing I noticed is that these need to be align centered so that when you go down to a mobile view, they still look right. So there we are. That is our completed page. We would assume that things like this header being a little bit wonky at certain resolutions would be handled as a part of the main theme being developed. Um, I hope that this has inspired you all to go out and do some really interesting things with the block editor. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found the information presented here to be very useful. You can see our names and Twitter handles if you'd be interested in getting in touch with either one of us. And we hope that you have enjoyed WordCamp, and it's great to be here with you. Thanks.